We can change the signatory of the former executive director, Larry Spring, and adding the chairman's signature on the signatory cards. So we would like your approval of this resolution so we can take it to the bank and update the signatory card.
So move.
Second.
I have a motion made by Board Member Estime Irvin to approve Agenda Item 2. The motion was seconded by Board Member Galvin. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Item passes with a 4-0 vote. Agenda Item 3, resolution to approve Terracon Consultants, Inc. to do Phase 1 environmental testing and surveys.
Before Mr. Destrade starts, I would like to give a brief introduction. As you recall, this is in our approved budget to work on a downtown P3 project initiative, and part of that is to do our due diligence on the properties that the city owns. So this is to cover the cost to do a proper survey and environmental phase 1 of all the city lots, the city buildings and facilities that we are interested in participating in the P3 initiative. Mr. Destrade?
Yes, good evening. For the record, Alberto Estrada, Purchasing Director. Board members, just to follow up on what Rasha just mentioned, the item that you have before you under item number 3 is is essentially an assignment to the company Terracon Consultants, Inc. To provide a Phase 1 environmental assessment and to provide also surveys for 4 different locations, and they're listed there in the report. Site 1, and by the way, you have location maps that are attached to the council report, but Site 1 is the parking lot for Mocha, which essentially is the parking lot between Mocha and what would be Cafe Creme, essentially. And that's site number 1. And again, there's attachments included in the report. Site number 2 are the parking lots east and south of the North Miami Police Department. And again, you have a copy of the location maps with the report. Site number 3 is a City Hall property that is located, the parking lot that's located immediately to the east of City Hall. And site number 4 is a series of parking lots that are located just north of 125th. And again, you have the copies of the locations are included as part of your report. Essentially, we asked Terracon to provide us a proposal for both the Phase 1 environmental assessment for each one of these properties, and also to provide a survey for each one of these locations. On the second page of the report, you'll see the summary there of the costs. There's 3 different columns, 1 column for the environmental assessment for each one of these sites. The second column is the cost of the surveys for each one of these sites. And then you have the total costs for each one, and the total being $47,550. As part of their proposal, in page 10 of their proposal, they've included the comparisons which they got. They obtained 3 different quotes from 3 different surveying companies. So you have the results there. And as you can see, the surveying company, Keith and Associates, provided the best pricing to provide these surveys. So staff is recommending your approval, essentially, once again, to perform these surveys and a Phase 1 environmental assessment. Also here present is a representative from Terracon. If you have any questions, the gentleman is sitting right there.
Do you have any questions before we open it to the public? Kara, do you have any questions?
You did a bid, an RFP for this, or?
No, actually, this is an assignment to one of the companies that was on our pool of pre-qualified firms under CCNA. The CCNA list of firms was approved last year by the City Council.
I have a question. Was
She's
that the
done.
only firm?
You done, Kara?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Go ahead.
Was that the only firm approved on the pre-qualifying?
No, there are a number of firms that are approved. In their particular category, they were the top-ranked firm. So essentially what's done is an assignment to these firms out of that pool of pre-qualified firms.
Top rank meaning lower bid, lowest price?
No, they're selected in terms of their qualifications. Under the CCNA selection, it's not based on price, it's based on qualifications. So they were the highest ranked firm for their particular category.
Are you done?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Let's open it to the public. Do you have any question regarding the item number 3? No one comes. Can I hear a motion?
Move to approve?
Second.
I have a motion made by Board Member Galvin to approve Agenda Item 3. The motion was seconded by Chairman Bieneme. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Board Member Desilme, what is your vote on Agenda Item 3?
What is item 3, if I may ask?
Resolution to approve Terracon Consultants, Inc. to do Phase 1 environmental testing and surveys.
Yes.
Item passes with a 5-0 vote. Chairman, for the record, Board Member Desilme is present as of 5:42 p.m.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Agenda Item 4, CRA Advisory Committee nominations, Ashaki Bronson Malsibus.
Yes, this is the business nomination for Commissioner Desilme. Councilman?
Do I nominate her? What do I do?
Yeah.
So I'd like to nominate Ashaki as my business. I know Blanca Cobo is my resident on the CRA Advisory Committee.
Second.
Thank you.
I have a motion made by Board Member Desilme to nominate Ashaki Bronson Malsilus to the CRA Advisory Committee as his business nominee. The item was seconded by Board Member Estime Irvin. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Item passes with a 5-0 vote.
Before, one quick comment. So now we're at 11. We're missing a business at large. So if you have any recommendations, let me know and I'll follow up with them. But everybody else has filled up their positions at this time.
Thank you very much. Agenda item number 5.
That was 5 or that was 4?
Oh.
Yeah, that was 4.
Yeah, the committee nomination, it was 4, now it's 5.
Agenda Item 5, Standard Operating Procedure Manual, SOP update.
Yes, I just wanted to briefly update you. We had spoken briefly about the 2019 legislative session changes that they finally made to the CRA's state statute. So as you recall, the CRA had created a standard operating procedures manual that the board had approved in June 2017. So we have incorporated all the notable changes into the standard operating procedures manual so that we can make sure that we are following exactly what the state statute says and we don't do anything contrary to it. I've listed a few of the notable items that we will need to focus on. For instance, as of January 1st, all members, staff, committee members are required to do 4 hours of ethics training. As of January 1st, also, we were required to have a digital map on our website. We are following the city's procurement process. There are new requirements for our annual report that we're working on as we speak because it's due March 31st. It requires that all CRA expenditures to be pursuant to the annual budget. We've been doing that for the past few years. It requires that all budgets and budget amendments be submitted to the county 10 days after approval instead of 45 days. It also allows for end of fiscal year carryover for project funds beyond the 3-year limitation. As you recall before, if we had a capital project on our budget, if we were not able to get it done within 3 years, we would have to defund it or not continue. They removed that line item. So as long as we're able to justify the extension past the 3 years, it allows you to go past the 3-year limitation now.
Until how long?
I guess until the state statute changes, but they removed that line item, which is very good for us when you consider large-scale projects. Sometimes from planning, design, and actual execution, it takes longer than 3 years.
Question, Mr. Mayor, does that retroact, I know the answer, but I want to ask, does that retroact anything that you guys had took off because of the 3-year? Because remember that
Mr.
park,
Attorney,
If they already send the money to the
Well, I don't
county.
know. They always, it's
Well-
been 5 years, it's like, I don't know what happened to that money.
I would let the attorney answer that. He was asking for the 3-year limitation for capital projects. Is it retroactive? It would be effective the time that.
No, it's not retroactive. It's effective as of, I think it was
July.
July 1st
Oh,
of
oh,
this
when it was
past year.
passed.
Oh, okay.
So once that goes into effect, then it's for going
It's for whatever
forward.
current project.
Mhm.
Right.
Okay.
Or you reapply it to the covenant, okay, you
Yes.
don't send it back, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
To date, like I said, we've complied with the digital map. We have a digital map on our CRA website with GIS mapping. It also includes the city's zoning guidelines, plan, and also the opportunity zones on our website. We've updated our SOP, which is attached, and you can note that we have all the changes in red. We just went through our our independent audit with HCT. They were made aware of the legislative changes, so they incorporated that into their audit. Also, in March, the auditors will be presenting their audit to you at the March meeting. The 1920 budget was transmitted within the 10 days, and subsequently, the Board of County Commission already approved our budget January 22nd, 2020. So our budget has been passed unanimously. Through the city clerk, we are working on scheduling these ethics training, and I think, at first I had written here Miami-Dade County Commission on Ethics, but I think the city clerk is working with the Florida League of Cities for the ethics training.
We already have one for elected official.
They make us do it every year now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's two,
but this is another one?
This is for the
it's two,
advisory?
when you first get re-elected, every time you get elected,
No,
you
I-
have one, but you still have another one every
No,
year.
I know, but,
So for this, as of January 1st, every year, calendar year, you have to do 4
no,
hours.
yes, that much I know, and I think we are aware of it, but I'm saying, is this an additional to our council, stuff, since this is a separate body, or would that satisfy, because it would be the same thing?
All of the
It's all,
CRA.
It's
yeah.
the same thing, it's
the same
one.
thi- How you, that's what I want to make sure.
Whether it's here, it's the same thing.
Is it the same thing, Mr. Attorney?
We'd have to check that out. I mean, this
Yeah.
applies obviously to the entire CRA board and
Yes.
the
Committee.
advisory committee. So if you're asking me basically, do you have to, if it's a different type of course,
Exactly.
as opposed to the one that you're
That's what
given
we
as
already
a
required.
council member,
Mhm.
we will need to check that. I don't think it is.
Yeah, I think it's the
So-
same.
It'll be the same.
Okay.
They don't necessarily have to take
Yeah, yeah. That
Right,
would-
that's what
yes.
he's asking. If we
The
already-
reason
we
why
already
it's-
As long as
comply
you
with
have it on
the
why-
record.
council
Yeah, you have it, okay.
requirement,
Yeah.
do we have to take it again?
Yeah.
And usually
No,
that's, all that's taken care of through your office, correctly, as far as filing for the various, that's why you're working
Yeah.
on it?
Yes.
Okay.
The issue
So I'll
with
work
the
with
CRA,
the clerk on
the
that.
issue with the CRA, you know, in some other cities, the board are not necessarily
Elected officials.
elected
Those-
official.
Those
That's
are
really, yeah.
independent special districts.
Once we covered, we covered.
And some of
Yes.
them, like South Miami, have ex officio members who
Yeah.
also sit on the CRA board who are not elected officials.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay. Thank you very much, and now we're gonna go to item number 1.
Prior to going to item number 1, Board Member Desome, what is your vote on agenda item 2?
What is item two?
No, he was
Sorry.
not present.
Yes,
does
she's
it have to-
asking me.
If he was present, yes.
Yeah, I
You
wasn't
have to tell
here.
them what it is.
Yes,
Yeah.
Resolution to approve changing signatories on CRA bank account.
yes.
Thank you.
But for the occasion, if you were not present, he didn't have to vote.
That's correct.
Yeah.
The clerk had asked me before if there's a requirement to vote on every item, and I said
No.
yes, but that is if you are present
Present,
when the
yeah.
item is
Yeah.
heard, so he doesn't have.
Anything at 5:42,
Right,
you need to
so-
vote on.
The question that I was asking you, and you may not have, just to clarify, was that the council has a duty to vote resolution. And so what I was asking you
Right.
is if that would also apply here.
It does, if they're actually
Right.
present when the item is heard.
Yeah,
So if that's the,
Okay, but he can still
Clarification, that's
vote on
fine.
it. now.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
fine.
It's
But
okay.
it's, since he been recorded, you were here at 5:42, anything after 5:42, yes. Okay,
Mr.
Yes, go ahead.
Chairman, here's a random question for you, because you've touched on an issue near and dear to my heart. If the person who's not in the room when the vote is taken comes back and their vote is a deciding vote then to take a 2-2 to a 3-2, are you allowed to vote on something in that situation when you weren't in the room?
Typically in those situations, what I would advise is before the vote's taken, you go get the person who's outside of the room.
Say they're not in
because
the building.
I've not had that situation. I mean,
I have a couple times up here.
You know, where someone is not in the room, they come back and they're the deciding vote.
When the vote was held, the loss was 2-2 is a loss.
Correct.
The vote was then sort of delayed so the other person could come back.
That
I
same
vote-
day?
That same,
I'll-
yeah.
Oh, wow.
I'll look at what you guys have approved, but as a board, I believe the council approved that if you're out, you have to come back and vote. You have to vote.
We
when you
did
come back.
approve that as a result of,
But I know that's on the council.
yeah, I just,
It was on that result.
I've never been comfortable. I feel if your butt is not in this seat when the vote is taken, you missed the vote.
That is correct. I mean, if you go to the county commission, that is the way it's done, okay? That's why people leave the dais. That's why people sometimes purposely leave the dais. They don't want to
Oh,
vote.
that's.
Yeah, but we
that's-
changed that with our resolution. The thing is, if you're present
Right?
But it's
at
in
the
my-
time of the meeting, if you were recorded present, you need to vote.
Correct.
If you never been there, like him,
Right.
he came at 5:42. Anything before, he didn't have to vote. But anything after, yes, he need to vote.
So, again, if the person decides to leave the room purposely because they don't
You
want to
still
vote.
gotta vote.
Okay, well, that
That's
could,
what the
that could be
resolution says.
that could be this
Unless you can
council's
change,
rule.
yeah.
But typically, that's, in my experience, not the rule. And before the vote's taken, the chairman or the mayor would say, please go in the back and bring so-and-so back out here to vote. Because the rule basically is, if you're not on the dais at the time the vote's taken, that's why you lose, that's why you lose quorum. If you have 3 people here tonight, and someone gets up and walks out, you lose quorum. Okay, you don't get a quorum just because someone's standing in the back, correct? They have to
sitting.
be here, so it's the same thing with a vote. So your rule is your rule. You can implement your own protocol
Yeah,
manual.
we can always
you
change
have.
it if, but the way it's stated right now,
I'll leave it. I didn't. Someday let me tell you the story of Biscayne Landing and
Okay.
how it
God.
could have been much different.
Okay. Is that clear, Mr.
Yes.
Chairman?
no, I'm clear. I don't know
Okay.
what, I was here when we passed that
Yeah, no,
resolution,
this
yeah.
is literally, this is something that happened maybe a decade ago. It's just
Yeah,
always
yeah.
stuck in my craw.
Agenda
Okay.
item 1, resolution to approve to rescind the appointment of the city manager of the city of North Miami as the executive director of the CRA.
Can you bring some clarification on?
Yes, sir,
remind
Mr.
people on
Chairman.
that
So,
in
the
2011?
CRA, originally in 2005, when it was created or thereabouts, adopted bylaws pursuant to the state statute. Those bylaws said that this CRA board shall appoint the executive director. Subsequent to that time, in 2011, a resolution was passed modifying that position and basically said that from henceforth going forward, whoever sits as the city manager will sit as the executive director of the CRA. So when you have a city manager, that person is the executive director. If that person's not there, it's the interim city manager. So what this resolution is intending to do is to rescind that prior resolution so that the bylaws that say this board appoints the executive director from time to time, and it doesn't need to be the city manager, would be what controls going forward. Is that clear for everyone?
Yes, and we understand that, and especially in
I have
2000,
I have one person shaking their head no.
in 2011, when we did that, I understand due to financial situation with the real estate meltdown, the CRA didn't have money. That's when we want to shut on administration. But we do understand for the past few years, the CRA been adding enough money to the budget. As a matter of fact, they contribute over $300,000 to the general fund for administrative and expenses. That's mean we just think that the CRA can stand alone. That's why, and propose that we send that resolution.
That's correct. Instead, some commentary. If you all remember, when the CRA was formed, you had Mr. Frank Schnidman serving as the initial director, then Mr. Tony Krapp, and then Mr. Prudence. So they were all separate and apart from the city manager's office. They were paid a salary, and they sat in, their office, which was outside of City Hall, and directed the CRA. I will say that in my experience with CRAs, it's probably about a 50-50, where, you have, depending upon the size of your CRA and your budget, as the chairman has mentioned, you might have an independent executive director, because the duties of that executive director are, far in excess of what someone sitting as a city manager should also have to deal with in dealing with their city manager duties. And in smaller places, they have the city manager serve in both positions. So that's sort of a little background from my experience, and if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you
So
very much,
basically-
Carol. Yes.
Yeah, basically, we're no longer gonna have a city manager as our executive director. It's anybody we up here choose.
Which could be the city manager.
Could
I
be, but
mean,
it doesn't
I'm just
We
saying
have
it's
to
not,
appoint,
it's
yeah.
not automatic.
Yeah,
Okay, what this resolution did was make it automatic
yeah.
that the city manager was your executive director. So it doesn't preclude you from appointing the city manager, but it also allows you to appoint anyone you want.
Which I don't agree with, but it's okay.
That's a policy decision.
Scott, do you have any questions?
No, no questions. I mean, it sounds like that we're going to go down the route of hiring somebody else other than the manager. If that ends up being the case, I'd just like it to come back to us at some point, to come up with a procedure of how we're gonna advertise, national search, et
And
cetera.
qualifications and searching and budget-wise for the salary.
Can I
And-
ask a question?
Mhm.
Could am I allowed to ask a question at this time? Is it you or, how much, because I think when they did this, I wasn't up here, it was for a cost saving, but it's my understanding that we are contributing to certain employees. So is that helping us? Is that more or less, or is this really the CRA helping the city? Then the city, then back.
In 2000, understand that when we make that decision is because the CRA didn't have any money, and we were trying to save money. But from time to time, as of right now, the CRA have to cut a check and for over 300,000 to the city, and for helping with the administration. It seems like now the CRA can be an agency that stand alone. That's been, and we have to pay the city manager and the deputy another 45,000 to help with the CRA when we can have an executive director for the CRA and doing the work of the CRA. I think that would be the proper way of doing it. And if you don't have any more questions.
Yeah, just one comment. My only, not concern, but it worked out for us well because Mr. Spring, our former manager, was very well adverse in both things. So it would be prudent. That's the only way I'm leaning towards, supporting it, because you may end up with somebody who doesn't have as much, I guess, experience, like Commissioner Keys mentioned, in the CRA matter. So, so that's basically my comment towards
Another
that.
thing, our CRA was dying, and this is when we decided to bring Mrs. Rasha Kamel from the city of North Miami Beach to come and help revitalize the CRA, and she's been doing a phenomenal job. And when Larry Spring came in, that's helped even more. That's been, and if we all know how the CRA was like when I first came, it's like we were dying. Everybody were asking that, why don't we shut down the CRA? And and some people on the dais decided, no, we need to keep the CRA, and today, and we see what they've been doing.
May I say-
Councilwoman,
Oh, go ahead.
after.
Sure. Definitely, I'm in agreement with you, Mr. Mayor. I had the opportunity to actually serve on the advisory board for many years. I was there through the transition when we had to make the decision to, cut out the what CRA coordinator it was called at the time, and manage that. And I've seen the CRA grow. I'm very confident. I'm very sure that I'm okay with the separation. And I think we'll do well. So I'm definitely supportive of moving in that direction.
Thank you very much,
Yeah,
Council.
I'd just like to point out that our manager hopefully has the pulse of the entire city, the planning and everything that's going on. And you're kind of wearing two hats. You know what's going on in the city, and maybe if this property or something's going on in the CRA, you kind of flip it over to the CRA. An outside person is not going to have that insight, and now you're dealing with a different mindset as opposed to a manager kind of keeping them both moving simultaneously, and now you've got two people. So I think it's better keeping it in-house. So, with a manager, we do save money because a manager is not going to take the full new salary and benefits of an additional person. Money is not the only thing, but I think just having the mindset, knowing what's going on, and can kind of just flip the hat over CRA. Oh, this is a CRA issue, or this is, whereas an outside person coming in as a CRA director is not necessarily going to have all the insight that our manager would.
At the same time, if I may, I'm in the belief that the executive director will always have to have conversations and work in unity with the city manager. Is
But
that
some-
not correct? I mean,
Good.
so just, just the technicality of just actually dividing the two and giving that executive director the entire responsibility, and as the five of us are extremely demanding for our city, I think that, and we're growing, I don't
And
see.
understand. Good. No, what I was just saying, it's understand that the purpose of been doing it in 2011 was most likely a financial crisis. The CRA didn't have money coming in, and they have to do a cut. That was the main reason. And like I said, right now the CRA have to contribute to over $300,000 and to the city's administration in order to help them. That's another saving. It's like hiring a director, and it's a $45,000 saving right there, and administrative cost to the CRA. That's why. And if we don't have any more questions, we're gonna open it to the public before we bring any. Let's open it to the public. Public hearing is open on item number 1. Public hearing is now closed. My motion to the item is to rescind the resolution, and at the same time and appoint Rasha Kamo as the interim executive director of the CRA for now. That would be my motion.
Second?
It's like,
Oh, sorry.
no, it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. I'll let you take the credit, Scott.
Madam Clerk?
I have a motion made by Board Member Galvin to approve Agenda Item 1 with the amendments as stated. The motion was seconded by Board Member Estimate Irvin. All in favor?
No.
Aye.
Councilman.
No, you can give it, it doesn't matter.
That's fine. You can leave it under me. It's fine. I know it, and I saved that, but that's okay.
Good.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
I have a question, please, or just a statement that I'd like to make.
Item passes with a 4-1 vote.
I've been noticing in the
Thank you.
in the documents that we keep referring to the clerk as the CRA clerk, and I just want to make sure that on our records that she's that CRA secretary, please.
Well, the reason that we keep mentioning as a city clerk is because she was never formally appointed as the CRA secretary. So what we're gonna do in the new interlocal that we're revising at the next meeting, we're going to designate and ensure that the city clerk is referred to as the CRA secretary for purposes of this board.
So we all had to be appointed? Or is that's the way?
No. Well, yes, first of all, you were all appointed by the
Because they
city
are called by
council.
the CIA
Okay.
code.
Okay.
But the city clerk was basically hired by the CRA to perform
Interesting.
the services she performs. And the title was never designated upon her to be the CRA, or him,
She doesn't want you to hire her.
to be the CRA secretary. You all have a different format here in North Miami where the clerk is elected as opposed to a lot of other places where they're just appointed. So in the past, it's always been that the city clerk has served as the person on the CRA in charge of record keeping and the like. And in the interlocal agreement, it was just designated that there was, I think, part of the fee that's paid is for the city clerk services. So what we're gonna do, and we've done this in other CRAs, is ensure that, because we don't have a separate clerk, like we now have a separate executive director and a separate attorney, is that she'll be referred to as the CRA secretary.
Okay.
And we'll make sure that on the resolutions, it says CRA secretary.
Okay. And the only reason why I'm asking is I didn't realize that maybe our former clerk, so he was appointed at the time? Okay, so I didn't know
It
that,
was
but
sort
I've
of the
always
same-
seen the
It
document.
was sort of the same thing with the city manager being the executive director, so.
Okay. Okay.
But I appreciate you pointing that out, and I do think for purposes going forward that it'll be more appropriate to refer to the city clerk as the CRA secretary, if that's okay with the city clerk as well.
Thank you very much, and
You're welcome.
now do we have any report from CIA attorney?
No report, sir, thank you.
No report. Public comments? Members of the board? No.
Congratulations, Rasha Kamo.
Can I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion to adjourn made by Board Member Desilme, seconded by Board Member Galvin. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? We are adjourned as of 6:01.